I'm James Ernest of Cheap Ass Games, and you're listening to Legends of Tabletop.
Welcome, everybody. This is episode 108, and we've got James Ernest on tonight. So, how's it going, James?
Not too bad.
It's been a little while since we've had you on the show. Welcome back. How you been doing?
I have been working my fingers off. I'm going to a trade show next week, and so this week I'm kind of working overtime.
Nice. Very cool. Since the last time you were on the Joko cruise. How was that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, this was our third Joko cruise. My family goes on that. It was great. I was not as fond of the Mexican ports that they chose as I was of the Caribbean. I know the Caribbean better, I guess, but the people were great as always, and I got to do lots of fun things. And yeah, of course, the Joko cruise is amazing.
That's cool. I was looking at it a little bit. I didn't realize how expensive it was because I've been on a couple of cruises and I'm like, this would be the best in the world, right? You go for a week or whatever, play tons of games, and I'm like, ooh, but makes sense, right? I mean,
certainly not a discount cruise, and part of the price of your ticket is the ticket price of all the shows. Like you're buying a ticket to all the events, and so yeah, it's not a money saver, but it's certainly Andrew Looney and I were joking on this cruise about doing an event of our own that was kind of the opposite of the Joko cruise. It would be like Andy and I would take a cruise and you could go on the same boat if you wanted, and we would have no events and not even promise to be anywhere near people. We would call it what do we call it? A vicinity experience. You can be on the same boat as us, and that's all the promises we're going to make. And that would be possibly cheaper.
Oh, that's awesome. When I was trying to remember what the name of it was because I wanted to ask you about it. And the only thing I could think of was Junko, and it just, was like, I was envisioning, a bunch of 20-year-olds in baggy pants, all petulant and angry, cruising through the Caribbean.
Well, that's almost perfect. They're just not 20.
That's awesome. We have you coming on tonight to talk about Button Men Beat People Up, your latest Kickstarter for Cheap Ass Games. Can you tell us a little bit about the game?
Well, Button Men is it's a dice game. It's a very quick playing dice combat game. Two people fight and they capture each other's dice, and it takes like 9 turns. It's really short and really cool. This game was invented before it was Button Men. The concept was, this game is going to be given away on coasters at a restaurant next to a game store. And that game store sells dice. So this game was engineered to sell dice. That's like all it does. And we lost that contract. They weren't interested in the game. We had actually already sold them a whole wave of games prior to this one. And they were like, let's see how those do, and then we'll look at wave 2. So I kind of sat on this thing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't need coasters in my house. And I finally figured out the idea of putting the characters on buttons and calling it Button Men, and we sold them in 1999 through about 2003. We just released expansion after expansion, and we had partners making these characters. Every character has a different set of dice and different kinds of dice and different kinds of attacks he can make, and so on. But we made so many that we sort of stopped and put the game on hold for a while, and people could still play it for free online. And of course, the stats are very easy. You can just play for free with the dice you have. But I wanted to figure out a way to bring it back in a way that wasn't so expensive per character. So like we used to sell 2 buttons for $4.50, and if you bring that forward in time, that's like $6.50 for 2 characters. When the characters are just made out of 5 numbers, we thought, let's do this game on trading cards. Let's do a bigger starter set, but with lots of characters in it. And for people who don't have dice, we're going to put dice in the box as well. So it's 35 now for like 48 characters and all the dice they need. And now we can, like, if this game comes out, which I'm sort of reciting the pros on the Kickstarter campaign by saying if, because obviously it will, because it's already funded. But when it comes out, then we can start doing expansion packs that are just booster packs of 12 cards. So that's the goal. That's the goal, is you can buy characters now for almost nothing.
Nice, very cool. Like you said, originally it was published in 1999. The original run, I guess, up to 2000, over 300 characters with all the expansions and stuff, licensed properties and all that stuff.
Right. We had lots of other publishers who did their own sets of characters, and some of them were pretty high-profile licenses, like Sailor Moon button men came out from Guardians of Order, and that one's specifically top of mind because they're coming back. In fact, sort of in parallel with my reinvention of button men, Mark McKinnon over at Discami has been doing the same thing with Sailor Moon button men, and he's got the same characters now. They're coming out this fall with essentially the same stats as they had back in the 2000s or the Aughties or whenever they actually came out.
Right. Yeah, I saw it. See, you're so good at this. That was one of my things. So, so you've paired up a partnership with them to re-release all that, so that's just direct to market. That's not Kickstarter or anything like that on their part.
He's not Kickstartering that. He is just releasing a direct to market. Of course, we're going to partner with him and cross promote and everything we can. And he's doing roughly the same thing that we are. He's doing the characters on cards. So his box is a starter pack with 24 characters, I think, and dice. And he's doing something interesting to make the game wearable. He's putting a badge holder in his box, so you can stick the character in the badge holder and wear the badge holder. And we sort of have debated whether we want to do something like that. What we're doing at this point to have a wearable in the core game is just a button, a single button, probably a character button, but something that just says "I play button men," because you can at least advertise with that and carry the other characters in your pocket.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a cool thing for a convention or something like that, because there's still like an active community for buttonmen, right? There's tournaments, there's competitive play, like there's all kinds of stuff that's come up around.
And we have to think about all the possible ways that this game can be played, and conventions are one of those places. And game stores are a place where if you need dice, you can just buy them. But we still did a starter pack with dice in it, and I think Mark made the same decision because he's also going to sell this on Amazon. He's going to sell it in bookstores. He's going to sell it in places where people can't just reach out and grab a handful of dice.
Sure. All right, so when the game originally came out, you won 2 Origin Awards. This is like a common theme with games that come out of cheap-ass games.
The Origins Awards fell down on the job for a very long time and gave me a lot of awards before they finally wised up. So that was an era of interesting innovation, and games like Button Men and Disc Wars, and honestly, they almost had a Things on Round Things category before they finally sort of settled on. Button Men won for best abstract board game. It's not a board game. It doesn't have a board. The board is abstract. Maybe that's what they mean. Mm-hmm. And they had real trouble like pigeonholing it into any other category. Although technically, if you read the rules at the time, Button Men was actually more like a role-playing game than a board game. But that would have been even worse. And I think it was a year or two after that, because of games like this that sort of broke the mold, that they created the Vanguard category, which was basically treated as a catch-all. They're like, okay, you made a game that doesn't fit in our pigeonhole. Congratulations, here's an award. Now don't turn that into a category, or we're going to have to restructure everything again.
That's funny. So I'm assuming then the current iteration then is backwards compatible with all the previous versions.
I've done a lot of sort of new editions of old games since I rebooted Cheap Ass Games a few years ago, but most of those do have some sort of tweak to the rule that makes the new version better. But the core game mechanic for Button Men really doesn't need any help. It's just fine. So yeah, all the characters in the new set, they are new, but they're also totally backward compatible. All the old characters are still playable. If you look at the stats that they have from Button Men Online, you'll see that there are plenty of tournament legal characters that have a pretty high win ratio. So you can decide whether you think, for instance, the brawl characters are balanced. I think they're a little overpowered, but in terms of the baseline, yeah, these characters play against every other character and they're just fine.
Okay, well, so then I had a question about that too. So do you feel like overall, because watching through the wow, I'm gonna have to edit all this. the gameplay, the introductory gameplay is like, how do you play the game? And some of the characters have like 2d20 and a d12 and a d4. So do you feel that all the characters together are balanced out fairly equally?
Sure. The sort of key strength of Button Men is that a bigger die is not intrinsically better. So you can't just look at a character's numbers and say, well, this guy's heavier, so he's better. Small dice are faster and they're worth less points. And, you know, without going into too many details, that sort of balances the set out. Now, that doesn't mean that certain recipes aren't weaker than others, but it's not just based on how many sides a character can field. And what really sort of breaks the game is when you bring in special dice types that have stronger attacks, or, you know, other things that strictly make them better. Yeah, there's always going to be the potential for a rock paper scissors type relationship. Some character might beat a singular other character a lot of the time, and that's just because of how, you know, the numbers happen to fall. But that character is not dominant overall. It's just that's part of the cycle, and that second character can probably beat somebody else who can probably beat the first one, and that's the way we want it. It's when you have a game full of characters and the characters are mechanically different, it's never going to be perfectly balanced, but we just want it to be interesting. And in fact, the new set is going to have a whole section of the rulebook that talks about that where you use multiple buttons and you draft and you sort of do other larger game structures to mitigate the balance that you think might be in the game. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. It's so weird to be in the middle of it, because, you know, typically when I do a reprint of an older game, I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do, and then during the Kickstarter campaign, I'm working on the finishing touches, and people can kind of contribute to that, and they can be a part of it. And we had a couple of backers sort of freak out when I changed the rules on them in the first week of the campaign. We were going to do a die type that was basically focus dice, and these are well-known dice, and we like the characters that use them. But I played with focus dice and I said, these are only interesting before the game starts, and then they become normal dice, and that's boring me. I want to do something else. So we have a new die type in the game called Rage Dice. No, it wasn't Rage Dice. There's something else called Rage Dice. It's Rush Dice, right? It's Rush Dice. And they're kind of like a different version of Speed Dice, but they have the coolest weakness, which is that they are vulnerable to the same kind of attacks that they can make. So the Rush attack is I can capture 2 dice that add up exactly to the one that I'm attacking with, which is very unusual. Catching a lot of dice is really hard. But part of my definition on that die is that it's also vulnerable to that attack from anything. So now you suddenly have that attack as well because I'm showing those dice.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right. Well, so for the core set, there's 4 different factions. There's the downtown, which is the regular dice, the west side, which is shadow dice, Delta, which is poison dice, and uptown, which is the rush dice.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about the other die types?
Well, you know, the standard dice are just the core rules of the game are when you're attacking someone, you can either do a power attack where your die is showing a number that's equal to or higher than a die one of theirs. So you're not rolling dice and then seeing if you succeeded. You're looking at the numbers you have and doing calculations based on that. So a power attack, my D20 showing a 20 can take your D12 showing a 2. Okay, that's a power attack. A skill attack is where I add up several dice to take one of yours, and they have to add up exactly. So that's sometimes where small dice actually have an advantage. They can make skill attacks because they can just sort of pile up and do the skill attack. So the core set, the center set, has just those 2 die types. The west side characters, I'm going to get this backwards. The west side characters have poison dice.
Shadow dice.
Yep, I got it backwards. Look at that. Why can't I ever get this right? So because I switched it halfway through, the west side characters have what?
Shadow dice.
You're looking at the list. See, I don't have that. Shadow dice were originally invented for the Vampires expansion, and they make their power attacks upside down. So instead of capturing lower numbers, they capture higher numbers. But those higher numbers still have to be within that capturing die's range. So a D8 that's showing a 2 can attack another die that's showing a 2 through 8. And they do that instead of a power attack. So instead of looking down, they're looking up. Poison dice are worth negative points. So the characters from, well, I think you may have an old list, because I know it's West Side has poison dice. You're looking at an old list.
Could be. I thought I pulled this right off the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I know, because I'm thinking about colors in my head, right? I know the Delta is blue, and I know that's shadow dice. Okay. West Side is green, and those are the poison dice. Well, anyway, poison dice, they're worth negative points. So these are suddenly dice you don't want to capture. Normally, if I take your 20-sided die, I get 20 points. If you keep your 20-sided die, you get 10. If it's poison, if I take it, I lose 10. If you keep it, you lose 20. So they're super dangerous if you don't manage to get rid of them. But now we're playing the game upside down, basically. You're trying to get rid of that die, and I'm trying not to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rush dice are the new ones, and we certainly have been playing with those quite a lot. But basically, I already said what the thing they can do. They have an extra attack, which is the rush attack can capture 2 dice at once. And they also have an extra weakness, which is now suddenly your opponent has rush attacks also, just to pick those up.
Excellent. So the development for the rush dice are complete then. So this is not going to linger after the Kickstarter is over. Or is
it's not going to linger. I wouldn't call it complete because I'm still planning to do a lot of testing, and I've also got some satellite groups that are still testing it. But I'm getting really good data from them now that I haven't gotten on other versions of the rush dice that we played with through the campaign. One of them was too weak, one of them was too strong, and this one is kind of like Goldilocks. It's kind of just right. But I'm going to be taking this game to KublaCon in 2 weeks down in San Francisco and playing it as much as I can. We're having a little closing party for the Kickstarter campaign. It's finishing on Friday of that weekend, and so yeah, it's not done. I wouldn't put a fork in it, but it's definitely getting really close, and it's not going to delay us, of course, in getting this game out. So no, I think No Button Men said it's taken more than a couple of weeks to design in the whole history of the product. There's not much to worry about here.
Sure. Okay, that's cool. Well, I know Alley Cat Games, they had Cauldron Master on, I guess maybe about a month ago, and I think about halfway through the Kickstarter, they completely revamped the mechanic for the game. So
right, yeah, I don't launch when I'm not done. I think we're talking at a really superficial level when we talk about the behavior of this die type. It's like, does Buttonman work? Absolutely. Does this die type work? Not yet, but it's okay because I know how it's gonna.
Sure. Oh, that's cool. All right. So I guess just talk about mechanics real quick. So you roll all your dice in the beginning, and like you said, that's what you have to pull from, so you know what numbers you have, and
right.
You know what numbers you can attack then from there. And then when you take a die, then you re-roll the dice that you use to take that die, and then the die that you take from the other player then goes into your pool and sort of out of play for scoring at the end.
Right. You capture it and take it out of play. It's straight attrition all the way through. I take one of yours, you take one of mine. Bam, bam, bam. That's why I say the game is not any longer than 9 turns, because that's like as long as it could possibly go.
Sure,
unless you've got some very weird die types that I don't even want to mention. But like, despite how short that is, every one of those decisions is very interesting, because you do have the basic arithmetic right now of what can I add up to, what can I take. Then you have the next level of what am I leaving him with? What can he take of mine? And the fact that you have to re-roll only those dice that you attacked with lets you basically control what dice you want to leave and what dice you want to re-roll. If I have a 3 on my D20, I'm looking for a way to make an attack with that so I can roll it and try to get that number higher. But if I leave you, if I've got a 17 on the other one, I want to look at all your numbers and say I'm not leaving you with the ability to add up to 17. So all that's going on a really superficial level. But you also sort of, you need a long-term strategy of, okay, I want to roll my little dice up. I want to protect my big ones. I want to keep from having to roll them. And I want to understand what the odds are based on which dice I attack with, how easy it is going to be for me to do this. There's also a bit of arithmetic that goes into how you construct your character, because every one of these characters has a swing die that is not a fixed size. I can decide for that 5th die any size in the box. And in fact, if you buy more dice, any size at all, you can buy a D13 and put it in there for that X. And because of the scoring that we talked about before, like I take all your points, you take all my points, one of us is going to have a single die left because they can't all be taken.
Right.
It's possible that a character with a lot of sides could keep some of his own dice and still lose the game because he's given away so many points. And in fact, there's these inflection points where, let's say, a larger character is beating up on a smaller character, and he's bigger by so many points that he needs to keep at least 20 points to win. He needs to keep a D20, or he needs to keep, whatever else adds up to 20 sides. If I keep those 20 sides, I win. Otherwise, I lose. I can keep a D20 and win that game. But if the math is a little bit different and my opponent goes just down by 1 die size, now I have to keep 21 points to win, and that's much harder. and so I ought to change what I have, and the game is best 3 out of 5. So every time you lose, you're retuning, you're changing what you add up to, so that you can kind of fall into the sweet spot of how many sides you have to keep to win.
Okay. And is there a sweet spot for that swing die? Is there?
Not,
and I guess
mean,
it depends on
how you
on
the matchup, right?
Yeah,
it's going to depend on the matchup. It's going to be if you don't need to keep a lot of points, but you want to go faster, you want to go first. The low roll goes first, so start with a 4, right? Try that and see if you get the initiative as often as you want. If you're having trouble reaching your opponent's big dice, then put a 20 in there and see if they can jump up and catch it. And if you wind up at some sort of threshold where, well, if I have a 20 in there, I have to keep too many sides to win, I'll ratchet that down to a 12 and see what that gets me. I don't usually play for money, so I'm not usually doing that math before the game starts, right? But after one round, I'll kind of look and see who won and by how much, and go, okay, I think I need to change this way, and I'll just see how that works out.
Okay. Yeah, I like, and I hate to say it's the low strategy, because it's really not. When you start to really think about all that math and how many sides, what do I need to keep, and what's the strength of the other player, there is a lot of things going on, but it's very quick, very easy game to learn and play, and I really enjoy a game like that, because it's something you get on the table.
The decisions that you're making feel really easy, and you can read that. We have a site called beatpeopleup.com that's got a lot of strategy articles on it. You can read about that strategy, and you can kind of find all the math in the corners of this game, but it's sort of scary to talk about that to someone who's never played the game before, because they sort of feel like it's going to overwhelm them, and it's just not. It's just super easy to get into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when they pick up a game, not necessarily Buttonman, because it does have a high math component, at least on the back end, don't really give too much thought. You go to, oh, this box is pretty, or this is good, or I've heard good things about this, or somebody referred it. But a game like this, man, it's got to be like a mathematician's dream, right? I mean, there's just so many subtle nuances of.
Sure, and everything we just talked about just bears on the behavior of normal dice. And when you start bringing in the shadow dice, the poison dice, and everything else, then you've got a whole new field of study and a whole new bunch of articles to write.
and that's brutal too, right? Because you have to take a die if you can. You can't pass and like, oh, I'll come back.
Right.
So,
that's why poison dice work, because you're not allowed to pass unless you have to.
Right. That's
so brutal. I'm going to spend my time. If you've got poison dice, I'm spending my time actually taking your other ones, but then rolling my dice so that they're low enough that I can't take your poison die. And I'm trying to force you to hold on to it till the end. But yeah, I certainly, if I've got one attack left and it's to take your poison die, I take it.
Now, so, on characters who come from that area, are all the dice poison dice, or are there individual die on the card that are?
Now, we're talking about who's who. This is the West Side now. I've got it straight in my head. But anyway, the West Side characters, they have 1 or 2 poison dice. That's about the sweet spot, unless you start going kind of crazy off the rails. And none of these characters are what I would call off the rails. But so if you have 1 poison die, you're likely to have to eat it. If you have 2 poison dice, you can probably force one of them away. If you have more than 2, you're forcing enough negative points away that you pretty much always win. So there are some exceptions to that, but basically they have 1 or 2. And that's sort of true across the board. All the guys with special dice, there's some that are fully made of that die type, but usually they have 1 or 2, maybe 3 of that die type plus a mix of normal ones. And the way we're doing this in the starter set is we have white dice, which are the normal dice. We have black dice, which are the special dice. And your card will tell you what that means, but you might have shadow dice, and I might have poison dice. And we're drawing from the same pool of black dice. And that's just to keep the dice affordable. Like, basically, we're going to tell people, look, if you own 1 million dice, you should use blue for your shadow dice, and you should use green for your poison dice and everything. And that'll make this game a little bit easier. But if you look at the way we've designed the cards, the characters with rush dice are just red-orange. Just they've got an orange logo. They've got red dice. They've got a red city down at the bottom. Like, it's all reminding you, yeah, they're black, but they're really red. And the poison guys are green, and the shadow guys are blue, and really heavily sort of tinted to that color to remind you, yeah, if the dice are sitting next to that card, that's what they do.
Okay, cool. Is there any consideration? You're saying that they rush dice or red. Wow, I'm getting all kinds of feedback. That's terrible.
I hope that's not me.
No, I think it's me. I don't know. Oh, editing.
Okay, well, if it's echo, it's probably me, but I don't usually have a problem with it.
Yeah, no, it went away. Sometimes if I get too close to the
Oh
modem,
yeah.
to
Oh
the
yeah. Oh
laptop.
yeah. Is that wireless?
No, I'm wired in.
Huh, okay.
Um, so you were saying that the dice are red, the city in the bottom is red. Do you have any like like an asterisk, a triangle, anything like that for players who may be colorblind that would have trouble
Oh yeah.
seeing that?
We've never used color as a primary indicator of die behavior. So a rush die actually has a red frame, but it also has a letter R on it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, not something that people would necessarily think about if they're not designing games. I think it's interesting
So
that.
I have this weird luxury of being a publisher and also the graphic designer as well as the game designer. So I've been through the colorblind ringer a lot, and I know that our audience has a higher proportion of colorblind players than the general populace. So I get a lot of feedback. In fact, when we redid Brawl last year, we went out of our way to make sure that even though they're red, green, and blue, and that's what they are, they actually have colors that are distinguishable even if you're colorblind, and also patterns and stuff to sort of help you see the differences.
Cool, very cool. I know I'm gonna segue here into our sponsor segment. We were talking before we got on the air. You were lamenting that you maybe wanted to go up and get a cup of coffee, and one of our sponsors is Birds of a Feather Coffee. Birds of a Feather is a small craft coffee roaster based out of Florida. Their signature blends showcase the amazing breadth and depth of flavors coffee has to offer. The Morning Lark blend is a bright, complex coffee with a lot of layers, from the structured roasted malt base to the honeyed sweetness that finishes off with hints of citrus and spice. Now, he writes that down. I'm telling you, I don't know. My palate's not that refined. It's like wine. Like, if it's good, it's good. Birds of Feather coffee is good. Morning Lark, I don't like a light coffee. Night Owl blend, that's my brew. That's all I drink anymore. But the Morning Lark blend, it'll wake up your taste buds in the morning, noon, or at night. You could check out all of the Birds coffees and order now at birdscoffeecompany.com. So much editing. If you use code LEGENDS10, you'll get 10% off your order. You get free shipping. I don't know how this guy makes any money. You know Neil. You love Neil. I love Neil. I don't know if you love Neil. He's a great guy. He runs great games. He makes great coffee, and it's fresh. If you put an order in today, what's today? Tuesday? I tell you, he's probably going to roast it on Thursday. You'll get it on Monday. It's not going to get any fresher unless you grow the beans, roast them yourself, and grind them up. So check them out, birdscoffeecompany.com. Order, use code LEGENDS10, you get 10% off, free shipping. It's fantastic. You'll never drink anything again. So, James, next time you need a cup of coffee, you go to birdscoffeecompany.com.
Well, that sounds good. I usually just go to my kitchen. I work in my house.
The coffee's got to get to the kitchen.
Yeah. No, we'll check them out. That sounds really good. I like the description of all the flavors, and you say you can't tell them apart. I smoke cigars every now and then, and that's how they describe those things too. They have all these nutty hints of cinnamon, and no, they just taste like burning. They just taste like burning.
Yeah, I enjoy a glass of wine too, and or good beer. Like, I drink a lot of craft beers and stuff, and I try to find things that are different because I don't want to just like taste beer, right? So like wow me with some weird flavor or hint of some other thing. I don't know. It's either good or it's bad. The subtlety is lost on me. It's a shame, I guess, because if you're super into that, I guess there's a lot of complexities that can be gleaned from, whiskeys.
I feel like with wine, like perhaps more than any other one of these items, there's an incentive to believe that you have a more defined palate than you do. Like, if you're going to spend $200 on a bottle of wine, you have to feel like that money wasn't wasted. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, there's a lot of self trickery going on in there.
All right. So you already said you're planning some expansions for the core set, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, so Gen Con is probably the best time for us to sort of meet all of our old partners and find some new ones and say, hey, do you want to do a set of characters? We're already working with Green Ronin. We're going to do a set of characters from their RPG, and we're doing. We're talking to the people over at. Now I'm going to need some editing. No, I'm actually kind of curious if I'm allowed to say that yet. So I can't say that. So whatever. We're talking with some people about some things.
Yeah, don't get in trouble with the boss. And
Wait a minute, that's me. I can say whatever I want. Did we not just learn that? When I tell you, it becomes unclassified. That's the rules.
There you go. There you go.
But whoever was making that expansion winds up getting shot.
All right, and I guess it's okay to say, because you said it earlier. It's you could play the game for free. It's available on the website. There's a free section there. So
yeah, absolutely. It's so weird when I wind up, jousting with someone who's like, "You're making me buy all these dice." I'm like, "I'm really not. I'm packaging this for a bookstore. Here's the stats. Enjoy the game for free."
Right. But knowing that it's free, like, I'm cheap, right? So cheap ass games, like, this is good synergy here. But I would feel, for me, I would feel weird going and downloading it and playing it for free, right? Especially now it's on Kickstarter. Like, if it wasn't available, be like, I really like it, I'll play it, but it's available. I can't, so there's a pledge for every pocketbook, right? So you could just get the cards. It's $15. They're going to come shrink wrap. You've got them. Every gamer's got buckets of dice, right? So you don't have to do the 35. But if you do the 35, you get the cards, you get the dice, you get the fun envelope. You're getting all kinds of cool little extras in there. You're getting 8 extra character cards. You're getting the pin. There's another bunch of stuff in there. So it's $15. Like, you spend $15, you go out and buy a cup of coffee. Starbucks, you're already at like $7. So, like, you can get a game for that. Yeah,
I agree. I think people who are complaining to me about price point really are complaining about something else, and it's really hard to engage them on that something else level. But I really like giving my games away for free. It's sort of like, I don't think of it as an end run. I don't like dislike you because you play the game without buying it, because I feel like it's a demo copy. It's a free demo. If you want to download the rule books for some of our games off the website and just read through them or whatever, I think that helps you make a buying decision. And I don't feel like that keeping that information from you is profitable for me in the long term. So yeah, we have demos of a lot of our games. We have some of our out of print games up online for free download. We also, things that we haven't bothered to print, we also put up in places, and by print I mean like make 5,000 copies. We do some short run games at places like Drive Through Cards, where here's a expansion to a game that we never printed, but here's a place you can get it. We try to get games in people's hands every way we can.
Sure. And like you said, I think in the long run that benefits you, right? So people either, they get to take it out for a dry run, or they get to read the rules, or, maybe they download this one for free, but like, that was really cool. I want to buy this other one because I like that, I enjoyed it, and I want to support them there, right? Because it's about the community. I mean, I'm not gonna say I've never, downloaded a free rule book or, an RPG or whatever, but, especially now, in the position that we're in with the podcast, I feel it's so critical to promote and to support and to do all those things, because, this is what you guys are doing. Like, I'm just some asshole with a microphone and, trying to get you on and, maybe help sell some more games. But, like, this is your livelihood. Like, you're developing, selling games. This is how you survive. And I think it's important for, and I don't think people necessarily, I'm not bashing on the audience or gamers or whatever, but I think sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect. It's like, well, especially with bigger companies like WotC, like, they've got enough money. And I think sometimes that may trickle down.
I mean, I know, but like I said, I think that attitude is coming from a particular kind of customer who is never going to be my customer anyway. And so, I mean, I want you as a customer. I want someone who says, look, I like this game. I like what this publisher is doing. I like what this publisher is about. And so I may read it for free, but I'll pay money to buy it because I want to keep them in business. I think that's great. And that's the kind of customer base that I want. And that's the sort of thing that, like, today's crowdsourcing and connected social media based publishing, that's what we're all about. That's sort of made for us. Like, get to know us, get to know our stuff, and we'll all benefit from that.
Mhm. And that
I
is
think
the
people sort of they dislike the facelessness, and maybe they. I don't know about Wizards of the Coast specifically, but I know that large companies, they feel like, oh, they don't love me specifically or whatever. I think they might be right about feeling ignored, but like, you know, nobody has to play games.
yeah, for sure, right? I mean, business is business. I get that. I mean, that's the cool thing about Kickstarter is because it is such an interactive thing. Like you have got pledge levels where people can pledge and be drawn into the game. You guys are continually putting out updates. People can email with questions like, "Oh, I don't understand this. I'm kind of on the fence. Can you explain?" Blah blah. And you're there, or somebody from Cheap Ass is there to be like, "Oh, it's this, that, and this," and thanks for sending us a question, and we hope that you support the project. So there's a lot of give and take, which is really cool.
Yeah, we enjoy it. I mean, we're never going to guess what people are going to love. We shot a how to play video with a little pug in it, and we love the pug, and we love the pug that came from a card sketch that has a pug in it, and whatever. But people they like it well enough, but they've got this whole other thing in their head. They want this character called Mutton Ben.
Yeah.
Which we're like, okay, well, we didn't think of that, but we're glad you did. Sure, let's make that thing happen.
Right. And I think that's the second stretch goal, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do Mutton Ben as a character, and I'm sort of in talks with Nate Taylor about exactly what this guy looks like. I haven't decided yet, but I think it might be a sheep dressed as like a cab driver or something. We were thinking maybe a butcher, actually. I don't know where that's gonna go.
Ooh, that's kind of dark. I like it. Well, I like dark, so.
That's super dark. A cab driver is sort of like left field. I think something that I take this game way too seriously, so I have to sort of step back and remember that the game does not take itself seriously. And one of my favorite things about the original Button Men, which we are not going to lose, is that every one of them has a biography that is just silly. Like, it's not realistic. It's not even possibly true, but Avis is a world-class chainsaw dueler and ice sculptor. Like,
Yeah.
of course it doesn't matter. Like that the backstory of this game is irrelevant. And I've really been on the fence about putting all the backstory in that I have been. I've been drawing maps for all the different, character blocks, and there is no point to that except for my own entertainment. I was lucky enough to talk to one of our backers last week, and I was like, "Do you like the maps?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love them." I'm like, okay, good. It's not just me.
That's awesome. Well, I guess like you'd mentioned earlier, it was a little bit of a RPG element in the beginning. So having maps and those sorts of things, and like having that sort of in your head canon is a cool thing.
Well, we're setting this game in a universe that actually already had some parts. The place is called Fight City, and that's actually a card game that we did back in '99 or so. Like '99 was a great year for us, I guess. But Fight City was a card game where you can decide what cards are in your deck. I'm not sure what to call that, but this was back in a period of time when Wizards of the Coast was like collecting royalties from anybody who made a trading card game because they had just got their patent, and that was interesting, but they never came to us. But anyway, so it's essentially a trading card game set in this place called Fight City, and that was set in Fight City in the '90s. But there was a lot of backstory and families and places and business names and stuff. I wanted to do a mob theme for the new Button Men set because it seemed like a good anchor point for a set of characters, and I decided to place it in that same place. So I already had a little bit of background, and then when I was writing up the art descriptions to give them some kind of interrelatedness, I wrote a whole bunch more background, and pretty soon I was like, okay, where did I say this guy was from again? And then I needed to start sketching up maps, and pretty soon I was like, let's make the maps for everyone.
No,
and now I think
cool.
we want to turn those into some kind of game product. We'll do a board game on the map or something.
Terrible. I should have muted before. So bad. Terrible at this job. But you had said Nate Taylor was one of the artists, and Cheyenne Wright is the other artist. Have you worked with them before, or are they like on the books?
Oh, absolutely. They're regular cheap ass artists at this point. Nate has done some stuff for us. Most recently, he did the TAC Pairs deck, which we have just made public on Drive Through Cards. But I don't know why we do these crossover things, but people ask for them, so we do. But TAC was happening, and they're like, and Pairs had happened the year before, and they were like, let's do a Pairs deck full of people playing TAC. And he did these great cartoons of people from Pat Rothfuss's universe playing TAC in different parts of the world, and they're so animated and colorful and gorgeous. So anyway, Nate was a shoo-in for this, and then Cheyenne has been working with us since forever. He did the art for Unexploded Cow. He did the art for Before I Kill You, Mr. Spy. He's done many games with us. He's also Phil Folio's colorist on the Girl Genius webcomic. So we've just known him since forever. And I had Nate and Cheyenne split the Buttonman art set because it was a pretty big set of cards.
Right, and the art is beautiful. I'm a sucker for good good art. They fit the time frame. They fit the theme. Racially, you're across the board. You have men and women and everything. And like some people may not think of that as a consideration, but then you go and look at the cards and you go, oh, that's really cool. We've got wide variety, and it's something that can be a touchstone for anybody that comes into the game. Like, there's a card that looks like me.
Yeah, I think there's a great deal of wonderful inclusiveness in this set, and it's one of the two reasons that we decided to go with a fictionalized mob universe instead of a real life one. Like, if you go and you actually look at the pictures of all the gangsters and goombas at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, they're just all old white guys, like without exception. And so, well, that would have given us a pretty boring palette of characters, but also some of those people are still alive. So we just decided, let's do fictionalized. Let's just get it out of our system and do whatever we want instead of trying to stick to the real world.
Right. Cool. As far as TAC goes, you'd mentioned TAC. Is everything shipped out from the Kickstarter? Are you guys still fulfilling orders?
For sure. We shipped a lot of that before the end of the year. We got it all done. The rest of it done in like February, and so now we're to the point of there's always going to be the dregs, but we actually had a higher response rate percentage-wise to our survey than usual. So we've percentage-wise we've fulfilled a lot of people. There's still some people we haven't heard from, but TAG is shipped. It's in stores. We're trying to get it into more stores, of course. We're getting reviews, and I haven't checked Amazon recently, but for a while we had nothing but five-star reviews there, which was just great.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen it up in my store. I haven't picked it up yet, so bad on me, I guess. But
well, there's it. Hopefully, it'll be there for a while. we'll see. I can't make any promises. Retail stores don't keep stuff forever.
Yeah. I have to get back up there. All right, and then what else is going on for Cheap Ass Games? Anything that you can tell us about that's coming up?
Well, this week I'm working on a deluxe edition of Pairs. Pairs has been a good game for us, and we're trying to get it into more places again. And this deluxe edition actually comes with a book with about 30 different games in it, so it's a slightly bigger box. And that's what I'm working on this week, is I'm laying out that book. It's got it says 30 on the cover. It's more like 40 if you count all the variants and everything. But it's 48 pages of Pairs games, including a lot of stuff that has been released in individual decks and a few things that have never seen print before. So that's my occupying my brain this week, along with keeping the Buttonman campaign alive. We're doing a Kill Dr. Lucky board expansion for Halloween, basically. So that's the next thing on my to-do list, is to get this board done. But it's called Dr. Lucky's Mansion That Is Haunted, and it's, if I make this work, I can't promise this, but I'll tell you what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make a side view map for this house, so it's an elevation instead of an overhead. And you're all ghosts in this particular theme, and Dr. Lucky has just sold the house to a family that's just moved to town. And because it's haunted and he wants out, and all the ghosts don't want him to leave. So you're still trying to kill Dr. Lucky, but from a slightly different perspective.
They keep him forever. He becomes one of the ghosts.
Yeah, we love you so much. It's not like we hate you. We all secretly love you. We want you to stay here forever with us. Before the innocent family moves in, you can be one of the ghosts that haunts the new guys.
There you go. That's awesome. You have any? I assume you're going to be at Gen Con. You have any other conventions that you're going to be heading out to?
Yeah, Origins and Gen Con are always our two big shows of the summer, and they're very different for me at this point, because Origins, I will be on the show floor, but I'm not exhibiting at Origins. I'm doing a podcast in the evening. Mike Selinker and Paul Peterson and I do this Origins by Night podcast with 3 hours from the bar every night, where we just interview everybody who comes through.
Cool.
So that's my primary job at Origins. At Gen Con, we have a big booth. We got a big 20 by 20 booth in the far flung beyond of the back of the hall, and we're going to be selling all of our new products. We're going to have a big tack display. We're going to have a backdrop where you can take your photo basically with a lot of murderers from Kill Dr. Lucky. There are at least a half dozen people at Gen Con who happen to be murderers in that game, and including Dr. Lucky, who we're bringing along special for this event. So that's BJ Becker. He's got no other reason to go to Gen Con, so he's ours for the whole week. So that's going to be crazy fun and very busy, and quite a change from Origins. But I'm also doing, like I said, I'm going to a trade show next week. I'm going to the licensing show in Las Vegas, and then I'm flipping straight from there to Kubla Khan. And Kubla Khan's, half playtesting and half lecturing for me. And lots of other smaller shows all summer. The roller coaster ride is about to begin.
Yeah, it's that time of the year. Like obviously Gen Con's a big money maker. Do you prefer a smaller con, or do you enjoy the bigger cons, or it's just a different experience?
Yeah, they're not. You can't even compare them. Like Gen Con is just wall to wall work, and a good small con, like a local convention in Seattle, even, it's just a place where I don't even have to do any talks. I just go and play games all weekend like everybody else. So yeah, they're two totally different things.
Okay. Yeah. So I was at PAX in 2012, and that was before it got super big, and it was fun. It was a good experience, but
it was super big in 2012.
Well, yeah, it's bigger now.
It's bigger now, yeah.
But RenCon, which is where we initially met, was just such a great time. And I think it was only about maybe like 500 people, and it's just so personal and so relatable, and everybody's around, and you're around, and Andy was there, and Seth Jaffe and everybody, and everybody's so approachable. It's just a really cool vibe, at a small con like that for an attendee.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for a guest as well, because we're not being worked so hard. I mean, we get to do our panels, but they're all close, and then we get to see everyone and play games, and that's a great time. RenCon is a great time. I am at RenCon again this year. It's the timing is right, so I'm sure I'll see you there.
Yeah, I will be there. Last year was my first year, and what a way to kick it off with you being there. And I talked to John Wick, and of course Andy was there. I interviewed him in his hotel room like 11:30 that one night. So pretty
well.
crazy.
Speaking of John Wick, there is another project that's on the side burner right now, which is a miniatures game for 7th Sea. I'm working on a game that I have been beta testing as Kagway Bay for about 3 or 4 years now, but John Wick is picking it up, and we're going to put that into open beta pretty soon. So you'll see a new quick playing tabletop miniatures game with from what they're telling me, really nice miniatures. I haven't seen them yet, but I know they're going to be good. You remember Pirates of the Spanish Main, I assume.
It sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, that was the polystyrene game. The models you punch out of a little plastic card and build pirate ships out of that. That game's been out of print for quite some time, and so I was looking for essentially a chance to redo that. I there's some things about that game I don't like, so that's kind of what Kagway Bay is, and that's what this 7th Sea game is going to be. It's a replacement for that.
That sounds really cool.
But not with polystyrene models, like with real
plastic.
Plastic models.
Cool. That's awesome. And then we should also remind everybody that you have the Demo Monkeys program, so people can get free stuff to go out and demo games for cheap-ass games.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find out more about that from our Facebook page and our website. I'm not actually the contact person for that, thank God, but Cassidy Warner does a great job coordinating the Demo Monkeys, and she's just ordering T-shirts, so talk to her now.
Get in while they're still hot.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I think we've probably beat this down pretty well. We'll say again that $35 gets you the starter set with the Funvelope. You get 48 character cards and 30 polyhedral dice. If you just want the cards, it's $15, and there's pledges that range up and down from there. You can get just the Funvelope. You could have yourself drawn into the game, and you're starting to get into some higher pledge values there. But it was cool to be part of someone else's game. That's a very cool thing, and everybody should check it out. We've got links in the show notes for all the things, so you should definitely check all that stuff out and support Cheap Ass Games.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you on again. I look forward to seeing you at RenCon this year, assuming schedules work out.
Absolutely. I'll see you there.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you for coming on, and I'll throw out all of our stuff here. You can find this awesome content and all of our other cool stuff at legendsoftabletop.com. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you could reach out to us at legendsoftabletop@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at Legends Tabletop. We're on SoundCloud and iTunes, Google Play, Player FM, Tumblr, Instagram, YouTube. You can find us all over the place. Punch us into Google. You'll find it. Follow all the things. Download all the stuff. You won't regret it. It's awesome. Yeah, I think it's awesome. You should think it's awesome too. You might not. I don't know. If you hate it, send us an email anyway. Let us know why you hate it. It's all useful information. I love it. If you have the time and you're so inclined, if you could leave us a rating on iTunes, that would be fantastic. That helps us out tremendously, gets us noticed a little bit more so we can bring other people into the fold, and slowly we'll assimilate everyone on the internet. That's the end goal. So thanks everybody for checking it out, and we'll catch you next time. Hit the button. Hit the button.